Hey friends, welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you are here. We're going to do a little history lesson today in relation to Pluto moving in Aquarius. So I would just encourage you as I go over some of these really basic ideas. I'm not going to do a full read, although that is very tempting and lots of times I get pulled into doing that. I'm just going to share with you some really basic things, some dates, some events, and show you the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, what was happening before Pluto went into Aquarius, and give you an idea of the basic historical events that were happening as Pluto was coming into Aquarius and making its journey through the sign of Aquarius, because that's what's happening as of tomorrow, the 23rd. So 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Pluto reaches 0 degrees Aquarius, the zodiac sign. And the reason, strangely enough, I was just looking at the astronomy photo of the day to find a background, and it happened to be the Andromeda Galaxy, which is where our moon, our Aries moon, is going to be in alignment with at the time when Pluto enters Aquarius. So I'm just like, oh, well, that's fascinating. Astronomy picture of the day that you just happen to pick today as a picture of the Andromeda Galaxy. Now, the Andromeda Galaxy is not, there are plenty of pictures of it because it is our sister galaxy. It's the closest to us, and it's a spiral galaxy just like us. And I would encourage you, or at least invite you, if you have a very fixed idea of what time is, or you use the word timeline because that still kind of denotes that time is somehow this linear chronological thing. And maybe consider time as something different, right? I mean, you could just say that it doesn't exist, and that would probably be the most accurate. But consider time as not necessarily a cycle, but much like the spiral galaxy, where we have this oscillation or the ripple effect, like you throw a pebble into water and you get the concentric ripples that come out, or the wave function in a lot of ways. But you can think about it in terms of this spiral, in that we return back to a point in space, but it's different based on where we started. And this is how you can kind of wrap your head around, okay, this was the last time Pluto was in Aquarius and the events that led up to it, and the specifics in the astrological chart then versus now, and see that it's similar and that the ripple effect is going to oscillate past us in terms of where we are, but it will be different, and it'll have its own code. It has its own architecture, geometrically, in terms of the astrology, and the events that are taking place as well. So this is just a quick history lesson about Pluto and Aquarius and where it was last time, and maybe what to kind of expect going into this next time period of Pluto and Aquarius. Now, Aquarius as a sign represents the 11th house. It represents humanity as a whole, networks, peer organizations, social networks, friends, associates, and really the collective voice as a whole. So it's very idealized, spiritualized. It is the resonance of humanity as opposed to the structures and institutions that we contribute to building, right? If Capricorn in the 10th house are the actual ecosystem, the kingdom, the government, the economy, these types, the banking system, right? All of these things that have actual nuts and bolts resources developed to creating them, like an infrastructure. Aquarius represents the container of the human civilization that holds that energy, right? So whether it be the collective voice, whether it be the internet and digital connections, and certainly as we are moving rapidly, and certainly we've already been there, so, and we have been here. It's just in terms of our conscious awareness and what's being disclosed to us. This whole idea of AI and transhumanism is part of this Aquarian energy. So it's helpful to look at where we've been the last time this planet was in this sign and where we're at now. So again, just like the spiral galaxy, I think it's interesting that this is where the moon will be at the time that Pluto moves into Aquarius. And I'm like, okay, astronomy picture of the day. That seems a little bit too on point, doesn't it? So let's start looking at the chart. And I'm just, like I said, this is just a little shorty. It's not going to be an in-depth reading. I am saving that for my membership. They're getting their weekly astrology report right after this. So, and if that's something that interests you, there's information in the description box and how to get involved with that. So let's look at this chart. Now I'm going to share with you a chart at a specific day and time, well, not time, a specific day and year that some of you may already know what this is looking at. So why I'm showing this to you is because this is the lead up to when Pluto came into Aquarius, okay? So we're looking at December 23rd, 1776. This is post Declaration of Independence, which is July 4th, 1776, right? We're still in the Revolutionary War here in the United States. We haven't even come close to a constitution or ratifying it, but we have declared ourselves independent here from Britain, okay? Now there is a natal chart, and I'm going to reference that based on this. So, a couple things to point out here. Pluto and the south node of the moon are conjunct. So, for those of you who are into astrology and you're following this, you know that this is a whole lot of going nowhere when Pluto and the South Node are together, right? Because the South Node is the tail of the dragon, right? If anything, this is reinforcing the elimination of what is already on its way out. It is, but it's not taking you anywhere necessarily when they're this close together. If anything, like I said, this conjunction at this time frame is reinforcing the elimination, just like the tail of the dragon and the back end of the dragon is eliminating, where we've been, letting it go. And so in some ways, this is reinforcing it with Pluto here. And of course, the North Node, which is always opposite. And when I say these nodes, for people who don't know, these nodes are the point where the moon's orbit crosses the ecliptic plane. And in evolutionary astrology, this represents the soul's trajectory in order to learn and evolve and grow. And so where we've been needs to be released, and where we're going, the North Node, is where we're headed. And when you look at the natal chart of the US, you're going to see that this North Node at this moment, December 23rd, 1776, is very close by to some very important points in the U.S. natal chart, which I'll show you in a moment. I just want to point out these things. Check out where Venus is, 5 to 6 degrees Aquarius, leading up to Christmas. Some of you already know where I am going with this, right? What happened on Christmas Day, 1776. Some of you know. Others of you, I'm going to tell you once I go through all of this. But Venus in Aquarius, she's also at a very important point in the U.S. natal chart. And Venus in Aquarius is much more willing in terms, embodying humanity and the idealized version of humanity, as opposed to what makes us personally comfortable. And the value is in the collective voice, not so much in the individual comfort level. So Venus in Aquarius as a whole is very social and very much about humanity. And there's a bit of detachment here in terms of what is individually valued. The sense of beauty and harmony is really about the collective voice. But once you see where this is at in the natal chart, you're going to see there's a lot of letting go and kind of detaching from where things have been at a soul level and karmically, that on this time were initiated and acted upon. And you see that Chiron, good old Chiron the hybrid, exactly where he's at right now. Exactly. Well, the same degree, I should say, the same whole degree. Chiron, as of today, just moved into the 15 to 16 degree Aries territory. So it was in the same place as it is now, okay? There's another data point to add to this, okay? And Uranus in Gemini, this is important as we move into Christmas Day, and seeing that Venus and Uranus are going to be in exact trine, and an air trine, in fact. So, and then you see that Neptune is pretty much opposite of where it is right now. So Neptune in Virgo is at its weakest. So in some cases, this actually gives this like really grounded and disciplined type of energy to Neptune, which is formless and diffused and is a solvent to everything. But it also, Neptune does dissolve everything it touches. So it might even dissolve in some ways this sense of self-control and this sense of, or give almost this delusional type of energy, because Neptune can be very propaganda-like, to this otherwise very committed and very controlling in a good way with Virgo, right? Patience and prudence and acting when the time is right, and then swooping in and taking control. And you're going to see what I mean when I tell you what happened on Christmas Day of 1776, because as many of you probably already know, and some of you may not remember, this is Valley Forge. Right? So this was the turning point of the Revolutionary War. So it wasn't just that we declared ourselves independent from Britain. It was at this time, Pluto conjunct the South Node, Neptune in Virgo at its weakest, right? And so very much disciplined when otherwise Neptune wants to just surrender to divine will. It's almost controlling in some ways this divine will. It's very interesting. And then Venus here in Aquarius and Chiron, exactly where it is now, and will be obviously as Pluto comes into Aquarius again. So let's look real quick. I just want to show you the U.S. natal chart. Some of you are familiar with this, so, use this as a point of reference. You can see all the Cancer energy in the U.S. natal chart. You can see that the South Node that I just talked about, right, the karmic tail of the dragon, where we're coming from, 6 to 7 degrees Aquarius, right? This is where Venus passes over as we're coming into December 25th, 1776, the Valley Forge. And what happened? That was a sneak attack. That was ruthless. That was George Washington going across the Delaware and doing a sneak attack on Christmas Day, right? You don't expect that when in a civilized society. And I'll tell you what, the British Army, they had this whole, perspective on being in a line and following the rules, and Neptune in Virgo was like, fuck the rules, basically. And Venus here, it's like breaking the cosmic egg, because 7 degrees Aquarius is the cosmic egg. And so Venus is like, you know what? It's all about getting away and initiating this push towards where we're going, which is 6 to 7 degrees Leo, right? There ain't nothing new under the sun. So for those of you who have heard this whole idea that the United States was always meant to be the new Atlantis, this really gives a lot, especially considering that Black Moon Lilith in the chart is conjunct the degree associated with Atlantis. And we know how Lilith do, right? If Lilith gets to do what Lilith wants to do in the chart, it is very dark, right? And when it is like, I'm bringing back Atlantis, it definitely happened, right? It definitely happened on some level. So I wanted to share this with you because this was the precursor, basically, to Pluto coming into Aquarius. Now, it comes into Aquarius and then goes into its retrograde back into Capricorn. It's going to do the exact same thing this year, okay? Pluto's going to come into Aquarius on the 23rd. It's going to be in Aquarius the first degree or so. And then in the fall, I think it's the fall. We'll look at it in particular. In the fall, or whenever it happens, it's going to retrograde back into Capricorn, into this territory. So the demolition is not fully done yet when it comes to the banks and the economy and the government and all the Capricornian things. We're not quite done yet, but we're dipping our toe into Pluto in Aquarius, okay? And that's what happens here as well. So the other date that I want to share with you that is really important and has a lot to do with January of 2020 is a very specific date. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to bring up Andromeda again while I actually do all this formatting, and it's a very specific date. And again, for those history people who are into modern history, into history of the United States, this might be something that you are familiar with. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't know, and this was a total happy accident in terms of discovering it for myself. Wow. Okay, so what I'm going to do is bring the chart back up. So this is a very particular date. It's April 4th, 1786. So I think we're just past, if not in the midst of the Constitution being written and ratified roughly around this time. But what is striking is that Pluto and Saturn are in a conjunction. So if you remember, in January of 2020, Saturn and Pluto were in a conjunction, and it was all that the astrologers could talk about for like the years leading up to it, the great conjunction, right? Because it really signals the beginning of the end. Because Saturn being the wall, essentially, and Pluto being the great eliminator and destroyer is essentially sanctioning and beginning the process of tearing down and really taking the power over these very distinct material institutions. Well, they're both in Aquarius here, whereas they were in Capricorn in January 2020. Now, April 4th, 1786, they are conjunct at 15 degrees Aquarius, which is a very interesting symbol. It's these two lovebirds that are sitting on a fence together, and it's this idea that, this dual aspect of the self is able to establish and feel some sort of happiness because they are, coming together, right? The individual and society are one in the same, in this degree, right? And so it's very interesting that these two are in this conjunction. You also see again that it's in a direct trine to Neptune, just like Neptune was in a trine to Pluto on December 25th, 1776. They were in a different degree and a sign, but they were still in a trine. So Jupiter and Neptune are still traveling. I'm sorry, Pluto and Neptune are still traveling in this trine at this point, where it's really, trine is an astrological aspect, a 120-degree angle that is very supportive and foundational, but it doesn't really initiate any kind of change or action. And in fact, it's kind of considered like a lazy transit because you don't have to do anything, or it's not like triggering you to like grow and learn. It's just like, hey, these two things like line up, and it's not activating, it's not challenging, it's just kind of, holding both in place. And so 15 degrees of Libra, 16 degrees of Libra. This is really about the link, again, between the, it's establishing the link between the unconscious ocean, right? And the fact that we still have to live on land, and right? So you have to reconstruct that boat landing in some ways. And so it's almost like this got reined in. And you know what happened on April 4th, 1786? The New York legislature passed an act that basically said, we're going to control and regulate the militia, right? So there you go. You see that Second Amendment energy about people having the right not only to bear arms, but to be able to regulate themselves in the militia. New York passed legislation on this day. They passed an act that said, we're going to regulate the militia. Now you can see how it's reining in the power and taking power from the people in a way that seems like that it is making this link, right? But in fact, it's actually kind of a chain in some ways. And this is the thing with Pluto and Saturn. It really is just like, no, I'm taking power over these institutions. And in fact, it was like, I'm taking power over the collective voice then, and in some ways kind of giving this propaganda here that I'm actually making this, this link, when in fact it's just taking total control over the situation. And the sun, opposite of Neptune at that time, is you're so susceptible to confusion and deception and delusion. And where's the sun? It is exactly where Chiron is right now. So you can see how these transits these ripple effects, right? So I'm curious to see what's going to happen in the years as Pluto comes into this same degree again. And maybe it's actually worth looking at. So let's just take a moment here. This was not meant to be a full read, so we're gonna look at the current astrology. So go to the current planetary positions. And for those of you who are into astrology, I do use the true or oscillating nodes and the oscillating Lilith as well. I don't use the mean or the average. That's just the way that I read it. So you may get different things. And that goes for your natal chart too. If you're using the average of your nodes or Lilith, you're going to get something different than what I cast for, which is the actual oscillating Lilith. And Black Moon Lilith is the lunar apogee, right? It's that space in the lunar orbit that is furthest away. And so in astrology, Black Moon Lilith is like, if you try to fill the void that's left there yourself and not let God or the Holy Spirit come into you, you're going to do some of those Lilith things that she has a really bad reputation for. And you see it. You see it in the natal chart of the US. The fact that Lilith is at the degree that in galactic astrology is related to Atlantis. Okay, so what can I say? It's all written there. And like once you understand the code, then you understand how their code, right, that they're using to plan all of this stuff. So here we are on the 22nd, and I would like to look at tomorrow when Pluto comes into Aquarius, just to kind of give you an idea, because where the chart is. Like I said, here's Chiron, 15 to 16 degrees Aries. We have Jupiter right here as well. You see that Neptune is now in its home sign of Pisces, whereas before it was over here in Virgo. So now it's really just completely diffused and dissolved, and we have no choice at this point other than to truly just surrender to the divine will of all of this. In fact, what came to fruition here with Neptune and Virgo has now come to an end, and we have to live with the consequences and the ending of that cycle. That's what Pisces in the 12th house, you don't have any control over this. You become one with everything, including your own karma and the karma of whoever you're involved with. And you have to trust in the divine intervention into the process and to lead you, right? So for those of you who listened to the Starseed Ministry on Monday, you saw that the Hanged Man definitely came out in the reading, but it was not totally upright, which suggested to me that we're still struggling with this, of just totally surrendering to the divine will in the situation as a whole, because we're still holding so tightly onto things, despite the fact that it's becoming pretty clear that things are not what we had felt or want to feel them, right? But anyway, now the moon will have moved, is going to be in Taurus as of tomorrow, right? And you can see that this is midday, mid-afternoon here on Thursday on the East Coast, right? Now, here's Pluto in Aquarius. Now, we're just going to look. I'm just going to kind of go into the years ahead, and maybe we'll get lucky and find that midpoint. Oh, we did. Look at that. 9 years. We find that Pluto is back at 14 degrees. Oh, Jupiter is at 27 degrees of Capricorn, just where it was with Pluto in the South Node, right? So the big picture is going to be very felt at that point. And Neptune, look at this, 14 to 15 degrees Aries. That's pretty interesting, I would say. The nodes are going to be in the same signs, except flipped next time Pluto comes into the midpoint of Aquarius, right? As where they are now, right? The North Node is in Taurus. So 9 years from now, right, 2032, we're going to have the North Node be in Scorpio instead. So, and look at this, the moon conjunct that Atlantean degree. So interesting. So this is 2032, right? And we all know about Agenda 2030. So I bet you that we're going to see, probably leading up to this, Pluto will have already crossed this point and gone retrograde and is now coming back at this point. So we'll probably already things will start leading up to this point where the power, but at least Saturn's not here right now. Where is Saturn in this whole mess? Oh, it's down here in Gemini, very, very close to Uranus. Oh, boy. So, and then we have another 9 years, and you see that 2041, and I would say we're going to get closer to 2046 by the time we see Pluto fully come into Pisces. So 2043, it's in Pisces, and I think it's going to stay there, 2043. I don't think it's going to necessarily retrograde back into Aquarius, right? So, and the North Node, right? The North Node and Pluto will actually be in 2045, 2044 to 2045, they're going to be in a conjunction with each other. Oh, wow. Let's take a look at that, because it might be exactly where Saturn is right now. Okay, hold on, guys. We're going to end here. I just want to, this is not something I planned on, but I'm seeing it. So I'm just like, we should talk about this. Here it is. So December 2044 comes into Pisces. And it looks like February of 2045 is where Pluto and the North Node at 1 to 2 degrees 1 to 2 degrees of there it is. And the sun, oh my gosh, and the sun is involved too in this whole process. So 1 to 2 degrees of Pisces, what did we talk about? The squirrel hiding from hunters. So whatever's going on around this time is going to be, now this is going to be where we feel a turbo boost towards our soul's trajectory, right? With Pluto and the North Node involved, and then clearly the sun comes in and like shines a light over all of it. So I'm trying to get the formatting like exact, because I want to see exactly when it happens. There it is. Early February. It'll be funny if it's Groundhog's Day. I think it might be Groundhog's Day, the 2nd of February, 2045. It is. Oh my God. It's going to be between the 2nd and the 3rd in 2045 where you see Pluto in the North Node come into conjunction. And Mars is right here too, actually conjunct Fomalhaut, strangely enough, Archangel Gabriel. So we got some time to go, guys. But when this happens, I feel like that it'll be, it won't be us that needs to be hiding at this point. So, and Mars conjunct Fomalhaut and Archangel Gabriel, it seems to me that that's going to have a really powerful, it's going to have a really powerful influence. So lots more to look at with this. Wow, that took an interesting turn that I didn't expect. So thank you for being here for this brief or not so brief history lesson, Pluto in Aquarius. I'm going to be doing the weekly astrology for the Starseed Fellowship. If you are interested in a reading for yourself, you can go to my website, and in the link in the description box below, it'll take you to my homepage. It'll show you all my current offerings. You can hit the services tab to see everything that I offer. And then the bookings tab allows you to book and pay right from my website. And so I'm doing the equinox seasonal forecast. I'm doing lunar transit forecasts, and everything you need is in the description box below. So check it out if you are interested. Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate all of you very, very much. And I'll see you on the next video. Thanks, everyone. Bye.